Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about the possibility that Jack Smith brings a prosecution arising out of the January 6th events against Trump. So, from the start, he's had these two big, broad missions to investigate. And the Mar-a-Lago case at first seemed maybe it's a little bit small beer. We actually learned in the last week that the Department of Justice initially didn't want to get involved, seeing it as just a dispute between Trump and the archives. And then the more we learned, and the more Trump, as even his erstwhile supporters have said, it's totally self-inflicted wounds. It's as he so brazenly acted and insisted these are his documents, can do whatever he want. He made it not just impossible not to charge, but also righteous to charge. But we always thought about that case, which now did bloom into righteousness and now is the most serious thing he's looking at, and the January 6th case, which on the one hand is the worst thing that a president has ever done in this country. It's the apotheosis of constitutional villainy. But on the other, it's so deeply political. It is really bound up in a lot of sort of politics and First Amendment questions. It doesn't have a lot of precedent the way the documents case does, where you can cite a couple dozen people who did less than Trump and were indicted. And we had an impeachment, which some people will argue is the right way to redress that kind of conduct. So all of this has made from the start the January 6th case seem a little bit more questionable. But the issue has really come to the fore with the appointment of Judge Cannon in the Mar-a-Lago case and the prospect that that whole case drag on and not come to sort of a resolution at the jury level before the 2024 election. And that's provoked a lot of discussion of different things, but one of them is the likelihood that there'll be a January 6th prosecution, that Smith will bring something based on the January 6th conduct. And I and Andrew Weissman today went on record as saying we think he will. And let me try to explain, a few points. First, they've gone completely after the actors on the ground and alleged that it was seditious conspiracy about the most serious construction of the events, and prevailed in that, in showing that. So if it's a seditious conspiracy as opposed to some general, unruliness or spontaneous demonstration or whatever Republican apologists would want to have it, you can't just ignore the guy at the top. So if there is evidence, and I think there is, that Trump was orchestrating it, was lighting the fire, Proud Boys stand by, and etc. Having committed to all the foot soldiers, how can you ignore the general? And just more generally, the fact of the big commitment to the high constitutional stakes of the seditious conspiracy trials for several of the marauders on the ground, Stewart Rhodes and the like, means the department has already in a way passed the Rubicon of saying, this is something to be treated in the criminal justice system. And they've separately passed, the check the box of prosecuting a former president, for serious federal crimes, and bringing that case. That's what they did in Mar-a-Lago. So it seems to me that 90% of the kinds of objections or hesitations, whatever, have already been done away with. Third, recall that we've been calling it January 6th. It's really like 5-6 different crimes. Some of them are the actual melee, which the DOJ has gone after, but there's subsidiary parts where where Trump tries to corrupt the Department of Justice, or where he does phony electors and the like, and in fact, false electors, and so this is a sort of empirical observation. They have been in the grand jury in the last couple weeks. So, and that itself is like, if there's any connection to Trump of the false elector scheme, if any of them, will say, yeah, we were following the president's instruction, that's a clean, discrete case. And if Trump is guilty, it really, there's no reason not to bring it against him. And it isn't, as I said, some of these other cases, and this is just a practical prosecutorial point, that are not sprawling and a recipe for kind of going upriver forever. Like the electors case, for example, would be clean, and if they have the goods on them. Likewise, maybe certain things with Pence. Even more important, by the way, than the false electors, we learned in the last couple weeks, it all kind of washed out with all the news, but it's a thunderbolt. Mark Meadows has testified to the grand jury meeting on January 6th, as well as Mar-a-Lago. And January 6th, he is totally dead center in it. There's no way he testifies without getting some kind of deal, either a promise of immunity, which would be a home run for him, or a agreement to plead to a lesser offense and maybe stay out of jail and implicate Trump. But man, does he have the receipts on January 6th. He's the guy who's right there, and so many things. But among the first things I thought of when I heard about his testimony, remember his telling a few people, you heard him, he thinks Pence deserves it. That is to say, Pence, that went in response to the crowd, wants to kill Mike Pence, the vice president. So they may have something really clean and discreet on Pence as well. But let me summarize. The things that they were worried about before, sprawling, too tough, better handled in the political system, and already done in impeachment. They don't have to do a huge sprawling. They could down the line, but they could start with something discreet and clean. And they've already basically committed to the idea we should prosecute the president for crimes, and they've committed to the idea that January 6th was seditious conspiracy. So if they have him for that, it's almost a rank injustice to get all the lieutenants and privates and foot soldiers and let the general go. So for all those reasons, and I'll add one more, it's been a very kind of passions are running high, I think, in the Twitter sphere. But this morning we learned that the Supreme Court decided that if you choose the wrong venue, you don't lose the case totally. That was something that I think figured in the Department of Justice's calculation to go in the Southern District of Florida. Anyway, they're there now. They have canon. The teeny indication we have from today is at least the first order she's issued. She's trying to move with some dispatch, but there's so many ways to delay it. And a January 6th case would be a really strong insurance policy, I think, puts it too kind of crassly. Just there's a strong democratic exigency of having judgment of Trump reached by a jury, the way we are committed as a society to doing, before the election. And the odds of that happening on the Mar-a-Lago case have gone down with Cannon's selection. So that's one other reason you might think about a small, discrete January 6th case. But in general, that's a complicated kind of argument that some people see, I think, wrongly, as kind of maneuvering by the department. But let me just stick with the basics. They are already decided you can and should indict the former president. They've already decided January 6th was seditious conspiracy, and they can very easily bring a case that is clean and doesn't get them into, all kinds of practical morasses. So for those reasons, I, drew a line in the sand today saying I do think it's coming, and we'll see if I'm right. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.